Hey everybody, welcome back to Behind the Page. I'm CJ, and today on the show I have a very special guest who just finished up working on Quick Stops Volume 2 with Kevin Smith, issue 4 having just released on April 17th. Welcome to the show, Ahmed Raafat. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Of
Thanks.
course, of course. So I usually start by asking a lot of my guests, how long have you been reading comics? What have been your introductions, if you remember, and some of your inspirations?
I've been reading comics ever since I was a kid. I was like 6 or 7 probably. My first introduction was a little bit unconventional. Uh, in Egypt, I was living in Egypt most of my life. I've only moved to the UK about 9 years ago. So in Egypt, the most famous comic book is a translation of the French Mickey, the Disney Mickey magazine. So they have that in Egypt. So this was my first comic books that I've read. But if we're talking about American mainstream comic books like DC and Marvel and stuff, so that was around 1992 when the Death of Superman thing was happening and the whole world was talking about it. So it was like being reported on the news, even the local newspapers in Egypt. And I was like, I need to check out what's going on. So that's the first comic book I remember buying. Not the Death of Superman, but the ones that came after the Reign of the Superman. And around this time as well, the Batman the Animated Series was coming out, and there was the Batman Adventures, which were the comics that were based on the show. And I was lucky enough at the time that a publishing house in Egypt got the license to translate them and publish them in Egypt. So I was also collecting these like every month. I wouldn't miss a month, even if I was like traveling or something for a month. I'd tell the newsstand to keep an issue for me until I come back. So yeah, these I think this is where I started, and then I started exploring everything else, whatever I can get my hands on there, from that point onwards. Um, yeah.
Nice. So when would you say then you started breaking into making comics? What were some of your first projects and how did that kind of transition happen from reader to artist?
I always wanted to be a comic book artist ever since I was a kid. Like being a kid, drawing comics based on stuff that I read. And it's but I didn't study art, so I studied engineering because at the time, living in Egypt and kind of a bit isolated from the industry side of comics. Whenever I told somebody I want to be a comic book artist, they're like, keep it as a hobby and do something else, and that kind of thing. So I ended up studying engineering, but it was always in the back of my head to that I want to make a comic at some point. I want something printed with my name on it to just prove that I can do this. And I always set an age for myself, like by the time I'm 25, I'm gonna publish my first comic. And then 25 came and went, and I'm like, by the time I'm 28, I'm gonna publish my own comic. And it kept slipping until 30, and this was when I realized that I'm actually getting old and time's running out, and I need to do something about this. So I started doing some. I didn't have any ideas at the time. I hardly did any writing in terms of comics, but mostly I'm doing the art. So I started putting some fan art online, and a friend of mine who had a friend who had an idea for a comic book and was looking for an artist, saw them, and kind of connected us together. And this became my first project, El Osba, which is an Egyptian superhero comic book. The title translates to The League, roughly. And this was my first comic book. This came out in Egypt in 2015, and then a year later I moved to the UK, and I started. So when I did Lost Boy, it was kind of a side thing. I didn't get paid for it. I was just doing it for the sake of making a comic and actually having my name on something. But when I moved here, I started looking into the idea of doing this professionally. So I started freelancing, taking my portfolio to conventions. I had an account on Fiverr and freelance, all the freelancing websites where you try to get work. And this led to my next project, which was Gorilla My Dreams. It's kind of a noir, but comedy noir, so it's not serious. It's about a. Well, if I explain the concept, it's going to explain the mood. It's about a detective gorilla who uh, battles mimes and clowns. So it's kind of that. It's kind of that mood. And then the more I went to conventions and the more I met people around here, the scene in the UK is quite strong. Obviously not as big as the US, but it's a very strong scene, especially when it comes to independent work and things like that. So I started knowing people, I started getting involved in more projects, and just one thing led to the other.
Awesome. So you mentioned a bit about the project you worked on early in your career. How did you then get the opportunity to pencil for Quick Stops, both issue 4, volume 1, and then getting the opportunity to do all of volume 2?
That actually came through Twitter, of all places. So back in May 2022, Kevin Smith put a tweet saying, if you want to draw an issue for Quick Stops, drop your samples below. And honestly, I've been a fan of Kevin Smith for all my life, I know he's worked with industry giants throughout the years. So when I put my samples there, I really didn't have any expectation at all. I just thought, there's nothing to lose if I respond with my samples. And then a few months later, I got a message from the editor, Spencer Cushing, on Twitter saying, Kevin likes your samples and he'd like you to draw an issue of Quick Stops. What's your availability and all that? And I said, I'm ready right now. If I want to start right now, I can do it. So yeah, I mean, it really came out of nowhere. Just a tweet and a response to a tweet. Never expected it to come this way, but that's how life works, I guess.
That's incredible. So what was it that you sent in the tweet then? Was it samples related to Quick Stops or just any
No,
examples
no,
of your work?
no. Because at the time it was Quick Stops was just announced, so no one really knew anything about the new label. Beside that, Kevin Smith is launching his own comic book labels, Secret Stash Press, and he's doing a series called Quick Stops. So it was just a bunch of random stuff. I think what probably gave me a bit of an edge is that I posted some black and white samples because Gorilla My Dreams was in black and white.
Hmm.
So I've been doing black and white work for most of my career, and I posted some samples from that I had just finished the month before, and I think this is like they thought that I can do stuff in black and white, which is what the book is printed in and what they want. So they decided to give me a shot at it. But yeah, it was just a bunch of things. Interior pages. If this is an advice to anyone who's like applying to comic book jobs, if somebody wants a comic book artist, respond with interior art, not pinups. That's the one advice I can give you because I responded with like 8 interior pages. I pasted 2 pages next to each other in one image so that I can get as many pages as possible out of the 4 images on Twitter. So so yeah, just make sure you respond back with interior pages if somebody's looking for a comic book artist and for comic book work, don't do pinups and covers unless it's a cover or a pinup that the person is looking for.
So what was it like then getting to work with Kevin Smith? What was your guys' relationship like on this project? How did you guys communicate?
For Quick Stops one, I was mainly working with the editor. I wasn't working with Kevin, but for Quick Stops two, I was working directly with Kevin because editorial didn't get involved until a few months after the project started. And honestly, it was very surreal to be honest, because like this is somebody who I've been a fan of since the late '90s, early 2000s, and obviously Kevin Smith is a huge figure in pop culture and in our comic book culture. And it's I've loved his films. I've loved his the shows, the talks that he does. I probably know some of them by heart. So so just texting with him on a daily basis for a whole year, and like sending him pages and him sending me scripts and let's do this, let's try that, and it was surreal, still surreal to be honest with me. Like seeing my name next to him and seeing him tweet about quick stops and sharing my art sometimes and stuff. It's yeah, I never thought it would happen, but that's life.
Yeah, that's very cool. So I live in New Jersey, so there's a lot of like scenes from Kevin
I'm
Smith movies and stuff as you drive around and everything that
I'm due to a visit to New Jersey at some point, especially after I need to get my picture next to the quick stops and go to the small castle and secret stash and all the stuff that Kevin has there in New Jersey. I'm hoping that I'd be able to visit at some point next year or the next few years. I've never been to the United States before, so that's definitely one of the things, on the list. Like, visit the Empire States, visit Secret Stash and Quick Stops.
yeah, it is pretty surreal. I can't even imagine after having worked with him like you have what it would be like, but I just got to go to the Quick Stop I think it was over this past summer for the first time, and even just standing inside, it's just wild after watching his movies, just seeing both what's the same about
Yeah,
it in the movies and what's different and everything.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I can imagine. And I had to draw Quick Stops, so
Hmm.
I want to be. I'd
Yeah.
like to go there and see what I've been drawing for the last year.
So then I guess talking about the quick stop and everything that you got to draw, what was it like getting to draw the world that's in these Kevin Smith movies? Did you rewatch any movies to better enter the world?
I did watch for the first Quick Stops. I think I've watched Clerks 3 or 4 times. Just to because part of it was taking place inside quick stops, so just getting references for the place from different angles, and also getting my eye used to seeing the characters, so that when I'm drawing them, if there's something that I didn't pick on the first time, I'd correct it later on. For the second series, I also had to watch Jay and Silent Bob Reboot because if you've read issue 4,
Hmm.
a lot of characters from that film are in the issue as well. So and I also, I mean, generally, I like I'm a fan of his films. So I must have watched like uh, other stuff over the last 2 years, just out of something I enjoy, and put on whenever I'm done with work and trying to relax a little bit. But for the sake of the work specifically, I think Clerks and Jay and Silent Bob Reboot were the ones that I've watched and posed and took pictures just to get everything right.
I remember when I was because I got the chance to read issue 4 recently, and your art's incredible in it. I definitely really like how you adapt the quick stop and all the other elements of the films in it, like the movie logo and the costumes and
Yeah,
everything like that. It definitely was nice because in the beginning, I was wondering where in, say, like the timeline of the movies this takes place, but then I think it was in issue 4, it shows the memorial for Dante on the wall
yeah, yeah,
that it's, I
yeah.
guess,
So
the
this
most
this
recent
this
entry in the
this
franchise.
happens after Clerks 3. So yeah, I think there's a new Jay and Silent Bob movie that's being made, or he said that he's planning to make one. So maybe this volume of Quick Stop is gonna get a mention in it, and that'll be
Yeah, who knows if they'll call out the lore of
yeah,
movie's dark origin, but
yeah,
So like going off of that, the series obviously gets, I would say, darker and darker with each issue. There's more twists and you learn about more character motives and it just gets a bit
yeah,
dirtier, the
yeah.
story of it all as it goes on. Did you know this story was going to get this intense from the start, or you kind of worked issue to
No,
issue with?
no,
Yeah.
no. I got the script for the first 2 issues first. So when I was reading the first two issues, I was under the impression that Nancy is obviously I didn't know about older Nancy
Mhm.
being who she is
Yeah.
without spoiling too much. And for younger Nancy, I was under the impression that she's the vic, and she is kind of. I mean, she is the victim in all of this, but her reaction in issue three onward is something I didn't know about, which is I think was a good thing for me as an artist because when I was drawing Nancy in the first two issues, I was drawing her with a more sympathetic angle, like uh, I guess as an artist, when you know the character's motives and everything, it kind of affects how you draw the character. So I was drawing her in the first two issues as the innocent victim in all of this, before knowing what happens next. So I think in a way, having only the first two issues and not knowing anything else beyond that while working on these two issues was helpful to get me in the mood as an artist as well. And I hope I kind of fooled the readers into thinking the same, you know.
I definitely didn't see it coming until the
Yeah,
twist happened, and I think that was the end of around issue 3 that older
yeah, yeah.
Nancy was, yeah. Mhm. So go read the book if you haven't already, so you understand the spoilers we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, I hope I didn't give away too much.
Mhm.
At least issue four, that's the one that recently came out. The other ones, it's been a few months now, so
Mhm.
yeah. But read the books anyway. Read the books.
Definitely, yeah. Have you and Kevin then been in talks of working on any other Quick Stops related projects, or would you be open to it if the
I
opportunity came?
I haven't yet, but definitely. I mean, it was great to be invited into to play into the world of quick stops and the Ask Universe for a second time. And if it happens again, then I'd definitely love to be involved. I'm generally hoping that this series continues, even if uh, Kevin decides to go with somebody else for a quick stops issue, with a quick stops volume three four onward. I enjoy this as something beside the movies, like an expansion to the world of the films that Kevin has built. So I'm hoping the series continues anyway, because I enjoy it as a reader uh, before being an artist on it. So
I agree. I hope we get more too. I hope you get to provide some art for it as well. Definitely something I hope we get to see down the
fingers
line.
crossed. Hope so.
And I definitely think there's the opportunity to it. There's just so many different corners of his movies that you can dive into, and I think you've it's honestly very impressive because I'm in my dorm room right now, but back at my house, just from times I visited the Secret Stash, I do have shirts that just have the movie's logo on it. It looks like a uniform, and now it has a whole different meaning thanks to the contributions
Yeah, yeah, I was
franchise.
worried I'm gonna because at the same time I was working on the issue, they had the movie pop up in San Diego Comic Con. I was like, anyone who's gonna buy anything from there might not like it in a few months.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, but I think I mean even Dogma is kind of clued that movie and the establishment that created movie as a whole is very corrupt. So it is hinted at
Mhm.
in the films, but obviously the comic expands on this in many ways and cements the idea that yeah the origin of movie and the whole establishment that controls movie is very dark and evil. So yeah.
Mhm. Definitely. So transitioning a little bit out of quick stops, then I've heard from other interviews that one of your dream projects to work on is an official Batman book for DC Comics, and you mentioned before the animated series. Is there any specific story you'd want to tell with Batman, or it's more just the opportunity that excites you?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind telling any story, to be honest, if
Mhm.
this comes up. But I think I'd be interested to do something with Ra's al Ghul because kind of the origin, the fabric of the character kind of relates a little bit to where I come from, and I think I'd be able to. do things and tell things in a slightly different ways, a slightly authentic way to relating to where I'm from. So yeah, because when I was a kid, I remember the first time we saw Ra's al Ghul in the Batman Adventures, and I was very excited because seeing Batman riding a horse in the desert and all that kind of scenery, that you don't usually see in a Batman story. And I hadn't read anything before then. I was still 10 years old, so I hadn't read any of the Ra's al Ghul stories that had come before. This was the first time I've been introduced to the character. Seeing this kind of scenery, something familiar from your culture, was very exciting to me. Even though Ra's al Ghul is the villain in the story. So yeah, that would be great if I can tell a story in that part of the world and with these characters specifically. But again, any Batman story, I'd be happy to draw anything.
Yeah. You post a lot of other great stuff on your Instagram, at least that I've seen, that I'd love to see you delve into a full series or more on. Your Ninja Turtles you've been posting a lot recently, and you also did a post about the having to do with the recent Fantastic Forecasting that are two recent ones that if you want to
Yeah.
go a little bit more depth on either of those, or if there's any other dream projects or characters you have that are on your comic book bucket list to work on.
I mean, obviously, Turtles for me, I was as a kid growing up in the '90s, I was in the middle of the whole Turtle Mania thing. So Turtles is uh, characters and a world that I've been a fan of ever since I was a kid, and also I have a lot of respect for Eastman and Laird, how they went from an indie comic to one of the biggest uh, uh, pop culture icons. I don't think anything else became that big after Turtles. So I have a lot of love for this world and the characters, and I actually drew this for my kid because my kid loved the new film, and he's been asking me to draw some turtles. They know that I'm not an artist and I can draw stuff. So every now and then they're like, can you draw this for me? Can you draw this for me? So every now and then, whenever I have some time, I like to draw stuff for them and for myself. So I did that, but yeah, I mean, I'd love to do anything, and they're doing great stuff with the comics right now. Celebrating 150 issues and the Last Ronin and
Mhm.
the Saturday Morning Adventures series, which my kid loves and I love as well. I'd love to do anything for them at any points.
Do you
Uh,
have a favorite turtle, and is it different than your kid's favorite?
when I was a kid, it used to be Raphael, just
Mhm.
like every other kid. Uh, but I think now that I'm a parent and I'm responsible for other people, I think Leonardo is the one that makes more sense.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I think everyone loved Raphael or
he
Michelangelo,
was my favorite as a
depending
kid.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I definitely had the red bandana.
yeah. I had that as well.
Hmm.
Um, the Fantastic Four one. I mean, I wouldn't say no to doing a Fantastic Four book, obviously, but I was doing this for fun because around the same time last year, The Last of Us came out, and I did some
Hmm.
fan art of Pedro Pascal. So I was like, this is the annual Pedro Pascal fan art week. So for
Yeah.
me to do something else. But yeah, I mean, with the fan art and the stuff, most of the time I just do it for my own personal enjoyment. Like I've never drawn this character before. Maybe I'd like to see how I do my own version of it.
Hmm.
Uh, not necessarily because I'm trying to get to work on this or that series. Just for fun. And now that I can draw okay, I like to try drawing these things.
Hmm. So how about then, are there any comics maybe coming out right now that you're particularly interested in? Are there any creators or people working in comics today that inspire you in the art
This,
that
this,
you work
that's
on?
that's a long list of creators. Um, I've recently picked up the Batman: The Dark Age, the one by Mike Orred, and I enjoy Orred's art generally, and I was just it's a different retelling of the Batman story, and I that's something I always enjoy. I like to see creators tell their own version of the story without having to stick too close to the canon. So that's something I always enjoy seeing. Um, that was my most recent pick last time I was at the shop. Uh, and as for the for creators that inspire me these days, honestly, it's gonna be very difficult to like say a name or two because I just with social media, there's so much art out there, and it's not just the creators working on mainstream stuff. You know, like there's a lot of independent creators, a lot of independent artists, a lot of people just doing their own thing that are inspirational to me. So if you want to see what inspires me, this for everyone. If you want to see what inspires me, go on my Twitter and see the stuff I'm sharing there. That's this. I always share stuff about other people, and I always share stuff that I like and get inspired by. So go there. You'll find all the inspiration that I get and all the inspiration that you need to make your own stuff.
And you guys can go in the description to find that Twitter. We'll link all his socials down there so you guys can follow him then. So sort of wrapping up then, what would you say is some advice you have for comic book artists looking for their first opportunity, trying to improve their work, or something that you wish you knew at the start of your career or earlier on?
Um, Uh, I think the thing I was missing the most, and I think I tell everyone, if you want to start doing this, start now, because I waited for so long before actually doing something. I spent years just dreaming about this career that I didn't have at the time, and I was just like waiting to get better at this or get better at that or have the right story to tell. Just start doing it. If you don't have a story, look for somebody to work with, or just make up a short story. It doesn't have to. You don't have to do your 500-page magnum opus from the get go. Start small. Do short stories just to build confidence and try things out and to get some practice. Put yourself out there. Just don't wait. I think that's the most important advice. A lot of people wait for the right circumstances or the right chance to do things. Just don't wait. Start doing it now, and just be nice to other people. Be supportive of the community because when the time comes, they will support you and support your work as well. So just be nice generally. I think there's a lot of tension these days, and just be nice to other people. That really helps uh, you make friends in the community and find the support network that you need.
Great. Well, thank you so much for the advice. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure all the listeners who were looking for some advice and tips really do appreciate it as well. Everyone, make sure you go check out Quick Stops Volume 2, Issue 4 just released on the 17th. Like I said, go make sure you pick it up and post, tweet how much you like it. Ahmed's social medias, you can find them in the description. Make sure you go follow him. And thank you so much for coming on and for your time. I really appreciate it.
So thank you for having me. This was a lovely chat, and thank you for all. I'm glad you enjoyed Quick Stops, and thank you for all the kind words you had to say about it.
Absolutely. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of Kevin Smith's movies that it definitely I was really excited to check out the series when it came out, and I'm very glad it introduced me to your art as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you again.